The CEO is a very unique animal. I'm Alex Gertzberg, and this is CEO Confidential, where we learn about this rare breed, one heartbreak, one victory, one story at a time. This show is sponsored by the law firm of Gertzberg Licata, your ally for business growth. Folks, thank you and welcome. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in to another exciting episode of CEO Confidential. Today we have a president. We have my president of the local EO chapter, on which board I have the honor and privilege of serving as well this year for the first time. Mark Schnieders. Mark is an illustrious entrepreneur. He is the founder, president, and CEO of Stride Mobility LLC. That's one of two companies that he owns and operates. The other being Safe Harbor Insurance Agency, which is a property and casualty insurance agency that he has been owning and operating for 13 years. And then there's Stride Mobility, which makes high-end custom wheelchairs, and which he has owned and operated for 9 years. He's got 18 employees. It's based out of Huron, Ohio, and it's been experiencing exceptional growth in the last couple of years. Doubled in size from 2018 to 2019, and in 2020, when so many small businesses were shrinking or dying, Mark actually grew his by another 20% in 2020. Not without its bumps in the road, which we're going to talk about here in a second. But let me butter you up a little bit more, Mark. 2021, the 2021 Erie County Economic Development Entrepreneur of the Year. And he is, so we've talked about EO, we've talked about Stride. He's also a board member with the Ohio Association of Medical Equipment Suppliers, and a number of other things that I can talk about, but which I won't, because I want to leave room for Mark's stories. And ordinarily, Mark, we get a twofer today, because ordinarily I start every episode with Mark, tell me about that time when. But today I'm going to say that twice, because first I want you to tell me about that time when you got that awesome scar that we get to talk about today. It was a knife fight. There was a damsel in distress. You were defending her honor. And then what happened?
Well, to continue that story, it happened in the warehouse today, and it wasn't a knife; it was a yard sign that was sticking off the top shelf of one of the wire racks, and I was busy as usual. I'm in a hurry with everything that I do, so I tend to be a little bit careless, and just wasn't paying attention. And man, I'm glad that wasn't my eyeball, but went right across. I looked down at my watch; my hand was full of blood. I'm like, I got to look good for the camera in 45 minutes. So. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thank you for pointing out my soon-to-be scars. And what else would you like to talk about?
Self-sacrifice, ladies and gentlemen. This is why you're the president of EO, of our EO chapter, Mark, because you give servant leadership its true meaning. I mean, you bleed for your company and for your employees.
Absolutely. And like everything else, when I get involved now, I usually screw things up. So yeah, that's my lesson for the day.
All right. Well, here. All right. I'm glad that you're here. If I see you fading, if I see any evidence of trauma other than the scars, I will terminate this podcast and then I'm going to call 911.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. You're welcome. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Mark, more to the point of CEO Confidential, tell us about the time when you decided that you were going to hire some family members into your business.
Yeah, Alex, that's a great topic. And, thinking back along the entrepreneurial journey, this goes all the way back to the very beginning, right? So I get this idea, I'm going to start a company. It's going to be an insurance agency. And, like most entrepreneurs, you jump in without even looking and thinking and planning. and you find yourself with this LLC, and all of a sudden you get a few customers in the door, and things start happening, and things start growing, and then you need to hire some employees. And going back all the way to 2008, I wasn't aware of all the hiring resources that were available, nor could I probably have afforded any of them. So I reached out to the people that were closest to me, the people that I knew, and several of those happened to be family members, friends, friends of my son and daughter, their classmates' parents, and whoever you would run into. And at the time, you think, I know this person. I see him at basketball games. I'm sitting across from my sister at Thanksgiving every year, right? I know her pretty well. Let's bring them in. They're looking for something to do. And in the beginning, that works, right? They're easy hire to get in. You feel like you can collaborate and work and interact with them on a regular basis. But you also kind of realize that not only did you have much of a plan for yourself when you're starting these companies, but you really don't have a plan for onboarding employees. And you start to impose some of those expectations and try to, get them to fit into a business that they're not trained for. And now you have interpersonal relationships on top of working relationships, and that sets up for some speed bumps along the way. So that's kind of how it got started.
And pardon the interruption. So
Yeah,
specific family members, you don't have to name them by names unless you want
yeah.
to, but I heard sister, I heard the parents of your kids' friends.
hmm
What's the pool of humans that we're talking about here?
Yeah.
I-
So when we
yeah.
when we look at it, when we look at it today, my sister's been with me since the beginning. She had background in finance, was looking to enter the workforce. Seemed like a great fit. Let's see, my niece's fiance at the time, now husband, again seemed like a great fit. Was a great fit. Friends, I have 3 of my children's friends' parents work here. Let's see.
And these are all
I know
people
I'm
that
missing.
they're all still with you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I've lost one along the way, but that was for natural reasons and through no fault of anybody's. But yeah, it's it's been a common thread. I mean, we laugh and we joke, so we can make the claim. And when we talk about our culture, we talk about we're one big family. Well, most of us are kind of related, or 1 or 2 degrees separation. So you kind of have this core. And we can joke and we can get along. And as I said, we've known each other for years. We're very comfortable with one another. And as I say that, and I kind of think about where our culture is at, I think that's a pretty good foundation for it. So while I could probably tell you there's a lot of speed bumps, as I mentioned, along the way, I can also say that the net result after, you get over some hurdles, you learn each other, they learn the job, you learn the job, and we're successful as a business. We kind of have that strong interpersonal foundation. And as we bring new people in, it incorporates them pretty quick because they want to be part of the team and they want to be part of the family. But, Alex, I thinking about it, it's one of the biggest challenges, and for me, where I really realized that some of those speed bumps and some of those challenges and trials that we experienced along the way, I really have to take pretty much 90% of the ownership of that. And the reason that I say that is there's stress with being an entrepreneur, right? There's an entrepreneurial paranoia. You're always looking over your shoulder. You're often taking risks, some of them calculated, most of them calculated, we like to think, and we find ourselves just pushing forward, doing what you have to take to win, to overcome, to adapt. And you're asking people that didn't really buy in for that, right? Part of the interview was, hey, this is going to be a rapidly changing environment. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm figuring it out along the way. And when I figure it out, I'm going to pass it to you. And hopefully along the way, you can help me figure it out too. Who would really sign up for that job? So I realized that, putting people into that type of environment while I'm trying to learn and shape and grow these 2 businesses can sometimes be a little bit unfair. And then you enter, you ask your wife, my wife, who is my best friend, my business partner, and, a great strategist and an ally, to jump into this business as well. She's not an entrepreneur, had no interest in being an entrepreneur. And then all of a sudden, we've just got this big machine that we've got to keep rolling. And I'm like, hey, honey, I really need your help here. Okay, well, this is what I can do and how I can do it. And when you're still under that mentality that your way is the only way, and you're trying to impose your will on your spouse in the office environment and then back at home, that sets up for a little bit of a rocky road. And it wasn't really until I could take ownership of that and understand my role in that and really quit being kind of a jerk to the people that I care about the most, family, friends, that things started to change and become a lot more comfortable. And I think that that's what's really led to a lot of our growth over the past couple of years, is that management style change, that ownership on my part. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest tools that I used to do that was Culture Index. It was not until that light bulb went off where I understand now how people need to be treated, how people need to be motivated, how people need to be led, how to interact and communicate with them, and understanding most of all, not everybody thinks like me. Matter of fact, I'm the only person in the building that thinks like me. Reason for that, and that's okay. But I can't push those expectations onto people and expect them to succeed and to be happy and to thrive in a business environment.
Yeah, Mark, and Culture Index, just so for the kids listening at home, is this great sort of employee testing, screening, sort of a psychological kind of survey that gives you some idea about how they process information, how they think, how they communicate. Mark, we went right into sort of the lessons learned portion. I want to talk chronologically. I want to talk sequence. Okay, so it's 2008. You're running an insurance company, an insurance agency. You think to yourself, hey, I could do this. I can assemble custom wheelchairs. You had an opportunity. I think a friend approached you with this opportunity. Like, I think your exact words to me in our prep call were, Alex, I thought, well, how hard can this be? Right. And so it's 2008 and you start assembling your team by bootstrapping and sort of pulling in your circle of friends and family, right? So just sequentially, chronologically, what happens next what happens next in the story after you start your business and you bring these folks in?
Yeah, so again, the first one that really meaningful hire, I guess, would be my sister. So in the very beginning of starting Stride Mobility, it was myself, my sister, and a former business partner, and it was the three of us. I was, at the beginning of this, like I said in our pre-call, I thought, well, I've got the insurance agency up and running. It's doing fine. Yeah, this sounds like a great idea for a business, and I'll help get it started. Old business partner, you're going to run it. Sister, you're going to come in and handle the finances. I'll just be kind of like the behind-the-scenes guy directing and, not really have a big role inside of the company in the beginning. And that worked. We got up and running. We got accredited. We started to sell some product through a series of unfortunate events. My partner at the time and I had to part ways a couple of years into this, and now I found myself in a business that I really didn't know a whole heck of a lot about. Thankfully, my sister did have some internal knowledge because she was there every day and part of the financial and the background and the accreditation process, and I was able to lean on her pretty quickly. And then now it's, hey, you're a full-time wheelchair distributor. We've got a few employees under our belt. We got a little bit of sales. Where the heck do we go now? And then very quickly, I realized that I was thrust into a situation I really don't know that I was prepared for. One that I really hadn't put a whole heck of a lot of thought into, because that's my culture index, right? I've got great long-term vision, but look out behind me because I tend to leave a little bit of a mess in the wake. And didn't even know that about myself at the time. And now there's messes to be cleaned up, and who am I going to reach out to, and who am I going to lean on? I'm going to lean on my sister. I'm going to be a little bit tough on her.
Yeah, and
right.
If we can, I'd love to get a little bit more specific. When you say
Sure.
I've been thrust into a situation, I've got this mess I got to clean up. What are we talking about specifically, to the extent that you can share it?
Okay. Well, I guess I could probably summarize it by saying up until that point, I was a pharmaceutical representative making a pretty nice living, had a couple of side hustles going. And within about a week's time, without even any notice of what was going on, I had to buy out a partner and quit my corporate job, not knowing if I'm going to be able to replace my income, but God, I hope so. That
Okay.
kind of, does that summarize it? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
In
I
other
found
words,
myself
yeah.
at a really big turning point. Like, wow, it's go or no go, but I'm in so far, I've only got one direction I can go in.
Yeah. Okay. So then what happens?
So then I get involved in the business. I start taking on a couple different roles within the company, trying to be the visionary, but at the same time, we need somebody to deliver wheelchairs. We need somebody to bill insurance companies. We need somebody to negotiate contracts with various payers. That all landed squarely on my lap. And again, no formal training, had never done the job before, and it was just a matter of, put your nose to the grindstone, learn it, live it, love it, and get to work. And we started hiring folks. I think one of the next hires was my son's best friend, and I found myself in a conversation. They were an insurance customer of ours. I'm speaking to her about insurance business, and it comes up in conversation that she works as an administrator at a nursing home. Well, hey, I own a medical equipment company. I'm looking for somebody that knows nursing homes and medical business. You want a job? Yeah, I'll take a job. And she's been with me. She's my office manager, and she's been with me ever since, and does an amazing job. But enter this person, this individual, and all of a sudden, hey, do you know anything about medical billing? No. Would you like to? Oh, hey, by the way, I've got these couple of service guys out there. Do you have any management experience? No. Well, do you mind leading those guys and make sure that they get where they need to be with the right parts on their truck? So it's just this common theme as you're starting up. You don't really feel like you have the ability to go recruit somebody, as I mentioned earlier. So the talent pool that you're pulling from are people around you, and then you're putting some expectations on them. Again, to my earlier point, I didn't even know my real expectations at that point in time. So it was a little bit chaotic. But fortunately, we're good people. We have a great product, and we continue to start growing. The sales, a couple more people come in, some sales reps, and as soon as I could find somebody to backfill a job that I didn't, wasn't able to do anymore, or I could find somebody to do better, I'd bring them in. Fast forward to now, hiring is a little bit different. We're an established company. We got a great reputation. We could pay a recruiter. We can be patient in our hiring. We can pay more, if we have to, for people that have experience. And it's a much different world. But those beginning years were quite challenging.
What were some of the specific challenges of working with family and with friends?
Yeah, that's a great question, Alex. And I will tell you that there was a point in my life where my wife and I bought my parents' house. They built a nice, simple ranch for their later years in life right next door. We were out in the country. My sister moved in, my older sister. She's 18 years older than me. She ended up moving in with my parents to help care for them. Very thankful for that. But now I work all day with my sister. We go home and co-manage our parents' welfare and health care together. And then my kids stayed with her at her home on Put-in Bay. And so we were up there on the weekend. So it was literally 24/7 sister, wife, kids, parents, houses, and this growing business. So you really felt like you just never got away from it. And then, a few years into this, my wife was a nurse, has experience in medical education. We got to the point where we couldn't handle it. Enter my wife into the company. So now you're trying to relax on Put-in Bay on the front porch, having a cocktail, and your wife and sister want to talk about business. Yeah. Again, at that time, I'm not saying I'm a great leader now, but I really wasn't a good leader back then. And, sometimes you find yourself getting pinned up against a wall, probably not having the answers to questions that you thought you should have the answer to. And, again, not knowing your audience, not having some of the leadership training that I have now, thanks to EO. those were difficult times. Those were challenging times.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, I remember when you told me this was the topic when we talked about making this our topic, I was so glad because it's so prevalent when you're cobbling together your initial team. It's you don't have time or cash flow to have often the knowledge to have a really methodical hiring process, right? And you're just and you're a startup. Like, I mean, you represent nothing but risk to your employees, as you mentioned earlier. It sounds like your story ended well because all these people still work with you, right?
Yes.
But I want to delve a little bit deeper into some of those earlier challenges. One being it was difficult to get away from work when talking to your relatives, right? Was another issue ever the problem that you have with having to have like corrective action with them, disciplinary action with them? Like, did you ever run into having to keep things separate, and how do you tell your wife that she screwed up without having her pissed off at you all the time? Like, did that line become a problem?
Yeah, there were definitely times, and again, I really credit that not to my wife's performance, but to my management style. And early on, in this process, it was my mentality, right? My thought that you need to be in the office, you got to be part of the team, you got to be part of the culture. If you want to be taken seriously, you got to be in the trenches. But that was my belief, right? That's what I felt. That's why my thought was that I needed to be here. I needed to see these people that I got to trust their employment with me, with our companies. And you got to be there, and you got to show them that you care, and you got to show them that you're willing to do anything that, you ask them to do. And that wasn't where my wife was at in her career, and I don't blame her, and she shouldn't have been. And at that time, working from home really was kind of a new and novel concept. Not a lot of people were doing it. So as a business leader, that caused a little bit of stress and tension because I'm like, honey, you got to get in here. You got to do this. And the answer back is, no, I don't. That's your vision, and you need to be there. But I don't need to be there because I can do my job from my computer at home when it's convenient for me. I assure you that my job will be done. It'll be done correct, and it'll be done on time, which it always was. But I still had that like early mentality, that mind block that just said, well, you really got to be here to be part of it. And that caused a little bit of problem. Again, entirely driven by me. Julie, if you see this, again, I apologize. The other thing in that relationship is once I realized that I wasn't her boss, things got a lot easier. and now, to fast forward to the other side of that, she is one of my most trusted advisors and my closest friend, and she can work wherever and however she wants, and we have an absolutely amazing relationship, and we've been able to grow that business. But in the beginning, I truly have to fall on my sword with that one and take 100% of that responsibility for my own shortcomings in that.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because this really raises the issue that transcends the hiring your family and friends issue, which is how much of a control freak should the entrepreneur be? Because we all start businesses with a vision and an idea, and we kind of, so many entrepreneurs, including the ones that I've interviewed on this show, but so many of the ones that I know start out as giant control freaks. I'm the worst one of all of them. And then you learn to be flexible as you go because you realize nobody wants to work for a control freak, right? It sounds like that happened with you. You learned flexibility. I heard you say, my management style changed. I was being a jerk back then. Is that how your management style changed?
Yeah, I'm not a jerk now. As simple as that. Yeah. Again, I credit again to my eyes being opened to Culture Index and understanding my beliefs, who I am at the core, who I'm hardwired to be, and then realizing everybody else around me is completely different.
Yeah.
And nobody nobody is going to think like I think. And I never considered that as an option or a need to adjust or fix or correct to be a good leader. It just never even occurred to me. It was just work hard, do it your way, work ethic, work, work, work. And everybody else around me should see that I'm working hard, and if they want to be part of this company and this culture, they should work hard too. Well, they do in their own way. And again, I'm learning as we're growing, and every day is different. And I didn't have a lot of resources, and I didn't have a lot of knowledge and a lot of interest at that time in developing people. And when you're not spending a lot of time working to develop your people, to improve your culture, to define your process, to set clear expectations, and you're helter-skelter all over the place, there's tension. And now there's tension with your son's friend's mom, right? Or your sister, or your niece's husband, or somebody's neighbor down the street, whoever it may be. That led for some uncomfortable times. And like I say, I credit EO for helping me get through the vast majority of that. There was an instance, one of my first presentations years ago, a gentleman from, that we knew wanted to be a sales rep. And yeah, sure, I'll promote you to sales rep. But he really wasn't hardwired to be a sales representative. I didn't know that. He didn't know that. But I thought I was doing him a favor. Things didn't go so well. Now, how do you approach a guy that you're going to see on the weekends that you really like, that is a heck of a great individual, that was a great service tech, and how do you say, hey, man, I think this was a little bit of a mistake and we're both in over our heads? Well, that was a presentation. My EO forum helped me, figure out how to have that difficult conversation with somebody that I knew outside of the workforce, outside of the workplace. We had that conversation. Eventually, he exited the company. We're still friends to this day. Thankfully, I haven't had to have that difficult conversation with any of the other folks that I was related to or friends with. And as I said, they're all key, outstanding employees to this day.
You hear two narratives a lot. One is never hire family. It adds a dynamic to your professional relationship and to your personal relationship that just doesn't need to be there, right? You can be a lot more objective with people you don't know, and a lot more subjective with your family when they don't work for you, and right? So that's one narrative. But the other narrative is you're actually a success story, Mark. You made it work. These are people that you trusted. You grew together. You learned a lot about your own management style with them. And the fact that all of them are still with you today and that you are this hugely successful company, I would argue happens because of your shared experience, not in spite of it. So I want to end by like really reconciling those two narratives, right? I heard you say, to make it work, right? To make it work, one, the manager needs to be flexible. They need to check their ego at the door. They need to have some respect of boundaries, right? Those times when you were at Put-in Bay or Kelly's Island with your family, maybe don't talk business, right? You're there to have fun, to enjoy each other, and to enjoy your time together. Boundaries might be helpful there. Any other lessons learned for all the folks that have either found themselves without choice or just kind of now in those business relationships with their friends and family, knowing then what you know now, what else would you advise?
Be honest. One of the things that I've also learned through my journey with EO that I'm very thankful for is it is more than okay to express yourself and open yourself up. And our term in EO obviously is go to that 5%. But when I started doing that with my forum, with my most trusted advisors, I started extrapolating that back towards my family and my wife, my sister, and folks that work for me. And it's just be honest. It's okay to say, You don't have the answer. It's okay to say, this is how I'm feeling. It's okay to say, I need your help. How would you do this? It's okay to help people understand where your head's at. Matter of fact, I think it's rather refreshing to be able to do so. It's a giant weight lifted off of me. That's been my experience with it, is just be open and honest, and don't be afraid to point out some of your shortcomings to somebody and let them know that you can be vulnerable and that you have feelings, you have concerns, you have worries. And I always joke about it. This term that we use in our forum is entrepreneurial paranoia. Don't be afraid to let people close to you understand what that looks like, because people want to help and they want to understand.
Yeah.
Be honest.
Yeah.
Honest with yourself and honest with your people.
It's interesting that you just said that, because the other phrase that I've been hearing a lot lately is be vulnerable. Right.
Yeah, same.
I mean, don't hide behind an image or an idea or an identity if it's going to get in the way of good communication.
Yeah.
The lawyer and deposition taker in me always instinctively goes to make sure that I've covered everything that we could possibly extract from this topic. Is there anything else, Mark? Anything else from your experience working and hiring and working with family and friends that would be worth imparting?
The only thing I can say is that when you can get it right and it works, it's that much more rewarding. It truly is. I mean, to be able to share this experience with my wife, my best friend, my sister, who I love and appreciate more than I could probably ever express to her, the friends of friends that work for us on a daily basis, being able to share that with people that are already close to you is a pretty awesome feeling when it works out. Yeah, absolutely. And to see that as you're able to elevate, you can elevate these folks with you. And, my famous words are, I can't expect you to love coming into work every day like I do, but I really try to create an environment that it doesn't suck to do that on a Monday morning. And, you can see that they experience that transformation. They enjoy being here. They like being in the trenches. They like helping. They like seeing the growth that they were part of from the beginning. And the fact that you have that personal connection makes it that much more special.
Yeah. I love that. Because when it works, when the business works, it is exhilarating. Growing a business as an entrepreneur is so much fun. It's so there's so much energy behind it, and there's so much community around it with your employees. The converse is always, so my sister used to be my marketing director, and that did not work out. And when it worked great, but when we butted heads, and for various reasons, we both brought our own sort of baggage to that relationship. This comes back to what you said a few minutes ago about open communication. I mean, when it wasn't working, we had a really great, open and honest conversation about it. And that's why we still love each other today and are as close as we ever were, because we were able to sit down face to face and say, this just isn't working. You're not happy. I'm not happy, but we are siblings, and we need to maintain this relationship. Being able to have that open and honest conversation really did wonders. Being able to be vulnerable with each other really did wonders for the way that we separated our business relationship and how close we remained after that. Mark, this was great. This is such a raw topic for a lot of people, and it's so prevalent. It's so common that I hope that and I expect that this conversation will be a really great resource for tons of business owners out there. So thank you for sharing your experience. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was a great experience. Thank you for having me, Alex. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, for sure. Stridemobility.net is where folks can visit to be a part of your success, and they can find you on LinkedIn. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Mark, thanks again. We will catch you all next time right here on the same bat channel and same bat time, which is whenever you're listening to this or watching this.
Outstanding. Have a great day, sir. Thank you.
You too. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening to CEO Confidential. I hope you enjoyed it. Visit us at ceoconfidential.net and visit our sponsors, the business law firm of Gertzberg Licata and Cover My Six, a business solution that flushes out and repairs legal minefields before they blow up in court. We'll see you next time right here for another episode of CEO Confidential.